Testing 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Testing 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Testing 1, 2. Hi, Conway. Conway. Much better having a one-sided conversation. Don't have to worry about muting anyone. For those joining via YouTube, if you're watching via YouTube, you won't be able to chat. So if you want to ask any questions, you can jump onto the link from the Plus One website, and then you'll be able to chat chat from there. If anyone's on YouTube right now and you can hear me, just shoot me a quick text if you can, please. I just want to make sure.
Yeah. Not just yet. Listen now. Hey, you want to grab me a quick movie? It's better this way.
Hi, Zach. I hear you. You're set up.
Yeah, just a can. We'll start at 6, so a few minutes early, I guess. My first Zoom meeting. Professionally.
That's because I turned it off, Dave. So for those that are on YouTube, if you're on YouTube, shoot me a message, just a text or something, just to make sure that you can hear me at the moment. Nobody else is live yet. Shoot me a text message. Yeah, go ahead, Denny. Sorry, I had you muted. Yeah, you're good. I hear you. We'll get started in just a few minutes here, folks. I've got all the guests online. Thanks, John. Thank you, Mr. Sanders. All right, so I'll say it again. If you're on YouTube, if you went to the stream through YouTube, you're not going to be able to chat. Whether or not you want to or not is up to you. If you want to chat, just go to the Plus One Flyers website and get it that way. If you go on the Plus One Flyers website, under safety and live stream, there's a chat function there that you can use. Everybody that's currently on that got access through safety, I see a bunch of chat messages, so you guys are all set. Okay, here we go. All right, so for the new folks, the way you get credit for this meeting is at the very end. So this is the link that's up on the screen right now. Bookmark it, save it. It's used. It's been used for a while now. So make sure you bookmark that, and that is the code that you're going to use at the very end of the meeting to get credit. You get credit. You sign into the website. You put the code in. All your other information will be populated. And then once you enter your code, you'll get a confirmation from the website. Just a message that says thanks. And then tonight, I think it's at 11 o'clock, you get another confirmation email. If you are not sure if you got credit, it's very easy. Before you email me, just log into Schedule Master under your profile, under pilot personnel, it's going to show today's meeting and the code that you entered. So if you put the code in and for some reason you didn't get an email, just check that in the morning. And if it doesn't show up in Schedule Master, then feel free to reach out and I'll get it corrected. There's a few reasons why that might happen. It doesn't happen very often, but there you go. All right, so that's the URL you're going to use. That's what it looks like when you go to the meeting sign-in. It's under Safety Meeting Sign-In. Like I said, it's going to be populated with today's date, your email, and your Schedule Master ID, and then the code at the end. You can submit that. All right, so just to run through the ops updates, Dave is kind of monitoring the chat, I believe. So he can answer any questions in the chat most likely. But just a quick agenda. I'm just gonna do a real quick update on where we are in the club, and then I'm gonna pass it over to our guest speakers. Just to run through some ops updates here. Some of you online might have received an email. If you had 0 hours between January and December, you got an email from me today. If you didn't get that email, then don't worry. If you did get that email, then just follow the instructions. If you have some intention of instructing next year, I know it's been kind of crazy. Just let me know so that I can make a note of it. But if you didn't get an email from me, like I said, don't worry about it. Okay, so a couple big noise abatement issues. There's probably several instructors that are online that have already talked to the FSDO. Dave and I are seeing like once a week at least noise complaints, and these guys at this point, they're just going right to the FAA. They send us emails. They've got all kinds of, I won't say sophisticated, but they're looking at everything. They're looking at weather. They're trying to get barometric pressure. They're trying to find your exact altitude, et cetera, et cetera. So these are the hot spots. These are the areas where I guarantee you, if you're flying at 1,000 feet, you're going to get a noise complaint. Now, whether or not it's legal or not is up to the FSDO to determine, but save yourself the trouble and just don't do ground reference in these areas. I know it's a pain. Everybody likes to do it, but if you look at the screen, you're going to see it's on the east side of the 5 freeway, north of Via Day, and south of, what is that, Manchester? I can't remember, but south of the one that's on the north side of Solana Beach. Anyway, the guy is right there. There's actually a couple guys there now. One of them, I believe, is a pilot. At least it seems that way. So just try to avoid these areas. All I do is forward the emails that I get from these guys. Most of the time, we don't even respond to them because by that point, they've already reported it to the FAA, and there's not really anything we can do. And like I said, most of the time, they're nuisance complaints, and they don't go anywhere. You'll get a counseling session. The FSDO will explain to you, this guy's track record for reporting stuff, etc. So just be cautious. It's unnerving when you see these reports. The other one that I've mentioned several times in the past is the area around Pine Valley and Descanso. Descanso specifically, that community has banded together and started filing lawsuits against flight schools. So again, avoid ground reference maneuvers or almost any maneuvers in those areas, unless you just really want to upset them. But they do have lawyers that are willing to try to do what they can. A bunch of new fleet additions. There's a Tiger that is online, I believe as of today at Ramona. Nice 182 with a new panel at Palomar. A P28 at Gillespie. There's a 172 SP coming online, another one at Montgomery. And I think that's within the next week or so. So those are the additions. And then the only one that we lost was because of an accident. That's 5098 Echo. Most of you are probably familiar with that since it made the news. There's not a whole lot to report on this, so I'm not really going to go into this, but it was a total loss accident at Montgomery doing touch and goes. I stand corrected. I'm sorry. The Grumman is at Palomar. I don't know why I had Ramona. The Grumman's at Palomar, not Ramona. Sorry. So there was a touch and go accident at Montgomery. The next meeting, I'll have more information. Right now, it just happened. So all I can tell you is that it was a total loss, and there were no injuries. All right. So with that, I'm going to queue up the FAA presentation, and just let me know. Actually, Zach and Conway, I'll unmute both of you guys, and whoever's going to take the floor, it's all yours. So with that, quick switch. Okay, Zach, you are up, and I'm going to get your presentation queued right now.
Well, hey guys, how y'all doing? I'm Zach Jarrett from SoCal TRACON. Been here for about 15 years. I didn't have the PowerPoint pulled up because I thought Conway was going to run with that. Conway, you on? That's all right. I can pull it up really quickly. Oh, you got it there.
There you go.
So I guess this PowerPoint, Conway prepared this for us. Just to kind of go over some general area best practices, mitigate frequency congestion, just for us to provide a better service and help keep everything smooth. So I don't know who's running the slideshow there, but can click on if that's a capability. I don't have
I'm
that.
working on it.
Okay, cool.
All right. There you go.
That's a picture of the TRACON. That's where we sit in the San Diego area. If you're interested, if you wanted to look at that building, it has those sort of exoskeleton design. We would be on the top left of that. We're all the way up in the corner. Most people don't come and visit us because everything happens, aisle 1, that's LA and Burbank. And if you go into the next couple of sections of stanchions, I guess you'd call them, that would be Empire and departures out of LA. And then finally, the third row, that would be San Diego and the coast area, which is John Wayne and airports like that. So we're all the way at the top end of that building there. And if you guys have flown by that, it's just right next to Miramar. None of the maps used are for navigation. Okay, our basic area. A lot of San Diego County. We have a lot of airspace. We're a pretty big TRACON. San Diego alone is a pretty big TRACON, but as you know, we're in SoCal Approach, and that's a super TRACON, as they call it. All of Southern California. We have 4 military airports and a lot of different airplanes flying into those military airports. 6 controlled towers, 2 uncontrolled, Oceanside and Fallbrook. And then there's a few outliers that you guys are familiar with, Blackington, Palma Valley. You guys probably know more of the airports that sit around, privately owned than I do. But we've got a lot of airports in our airspace, a lot of departures to remember, a lot of arrival procedures, a lot of SIDS, a lot of STARS, a lot of ODPs, a lot of missed approaches. So it's a big task to learn all this stuff. The 2 Class Bravo airspaces, that'll come up again. That's always a good thing to go over. There's complex. It's a complex Bravo airspace. And we also have 3 jump zones. I think Oceanside, Otay, and Brown are the charted ones, but we have kind of no control over who does parachute jumping anywhere, so we do it a lot of times over Midway. There's 2 more in the South Bay, what we call the South Bay sector, Behringer and Lillian. And you never know when you're going to get a call for, oh, today we're doing a parachute jump over some high school or something like that. So we have 3 charted drop zones, and random ones pop up here and there. This is just a general map of the SoCal Tracon airspace. It's pretty self-explanatory. You guys are used to looking at maps, but there you go. IFR versus VFR separation. I don't know if anybody has any questions about that, how it applies to you. Also, again, I feel it's kind of pretty self-explanatory. Our first priority is obviously to separate aircraft and keep you safe. And the rules are different when you're IFR versus VFR. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. We're all about keeping people alive. So if anyone has any questions about that. Okay, so now what we're getting into here is going to be a little bit of a learning curve for a lot of us, and we still don't have everything ironed out. But I'll read what we have here first, and then we can go through it. And this would be a good time to ask some questions after this one. All IFR aircraft requesting multiple practice approaches will be advised to expect a full stop landing to the airport, which they were cleared in their IFR clearance. If an IFR aircraft cancels IFR on their own, multiple approaches can be afforded, and VFR missed approach instructions will be given by the tower. So this stems from an incident that happened at Palomar. It happened to be a Navy aircraft, which are by directive ordered to only operate on IFR flight plans. So what we normally do, well, normally what the towers do is they'll anticipate the pilot canceling IFR. Well, in this case, it didn't happen because it was a Navy pilot, and there was an incident where the H-60 overflew somebody who was cleared for takeoff, and he never canceled. And the controller in the tower felt trapped by the situation because they're not allowed to solicit cancellation of IFR. And the way it's always worked in the past was when you depart, we copy down all your multiple approach requests, and we forward it to the tower with scratch pad data. And that's just basically a digital note that the tower controller can read. Well, because of this event, it was determined by the FAA that this procedure was unsafe. So this is the fallout from this. So basically what it means to all the instructor pilots out there and students and everyone is that the only thing we can do is give you the one approach to a full stop landing unless you cancel. Because the implication from the FAA, not from us, we actually fought this, is that we can't ask you to cancel because that was viewed as an interpretation of soliciting cancellation of IFR, which is not allowed. And it is a valid point. The counterpoint could be that tower controllers never were soliciting cancellation of IFR, but they were saying, hey, you need to report canceling. But a series of events came to a head, and so now we're left to mop up the situation. So this does not mean in any way that we're not going to do or provide practice approaches anymore. It doesn't mean that when the weather is IFR, we're not going to provide practice approaches anymore. What it is saying is that, in a nutshell, you're only cleared to the airport you're cleared to in your clearance limit. The tower is not going to be allowed to ask you to report canceling IFR. But we want to develop a method to where we can still portray the message to the tower controllers that you don't want to actually land at, for instance, Palomar, because we know you want to go to maybe Palomar and then Oceanside and then Ramona, but also we can't do it all IFR because the separation requirements between IFR and VFR are, you might argue overly restrictive, but that's a whole different sort of a train of thought. But it really would slow things down, even for you guys, in terms of packing in as many approaches as you can on, an hour and a half flight or an hour or whatever it is. And I know you guys want to maximize your time. So the only thing that we're left to do is, we're still developing the procedure of what we're actually going to do, where the rubber really meets the road, what phraseology we're going to use. But it's going to boil down to, we are not going to be able to accept multiple practice approach requests until the point in time that you cancel, and then we'll copy it all down and we'll pass it to the tower. Now that does leave the question, what do you do when it's straight IFR? And it's a valid question, of course. In that situation, we're going to still try to provide the maximum service as possible, but it's not going to be, as fluid as it is when it's VFR, which is, just common sense because of the increased separation standards. Also, many times when you depart from Palomar and you go to Ramona and then maybe Gillespie or Montgomery, it's simply not feasible to do an IFR missed approach because the missed approach procedure conflicts with the approach course to the other airports so often. So to have a planned missed IFR instrument approach slows the entire system down and everybody would lose overall. But we're going to treat it on a case-by-case basis to the maximum extent possible. Is there any questions on that? I know it's a lot.
I'm just going to jump on and let's see. One of the questions was, why can't you fly IFR since it's why can't you fly the missed IFR since it's a published segment of the approach?
Yeah, that's a good question. You're always authorized the missed approach procedure, no matter what the situation. But
okay.
The problem comes in when you plan to fly the missed approach. So let me point this example out. If you're doing an IFR GPS 17 into Gillespie, and the guy behind you wants to do the IFR GPS 17 into Gillespie, and now there's 3 guys that want to do an IFR approach into Montgomery, we have to delay the guy going to Montgomery on his instrument approach until we have you basically, what the tower says, landing assured, or you didn't execute the missed approach. But since you're all in this community together, the greater flying community, if we know that you're planning to do a missed approach procedure, 9 times out of 10, you're delaying somebody else. And in the case of Miramar and Montgomery, we would simply have to shut both airports down. The missed approach off Gillespie interferes with both the Montgomery and the Miramar finals. So that's just one example. The missed approach, published missed approach off the Brown VOR Alpha turns into the North Island PAR final, and they have traffic down there all day nonstop. The published missed approach off of Ramona, runway 9 GPS, does a left turn back into the Carlsbad final, and we can't turn you until you get above 4,000 because that's what the MVA is. So really our hands are tied when we have to provide the extra spacing for planned IFR missed approaches. It's simply not feasible. It would slow you guys all down tremendously. You'd burn a bunch of fuel just burning holes in the sky. And we'd have a tremendous backlog to each one of those airports.
Okay. Follow-up question was, at the end of the day, if your actual IMC, the approach has to terminate the approach has to terminate in a full stop, or at last the intention is a full stop, correct?
That should be always the first plan. So let's just focus on strictly IFR days. There's no chance that you can cancel. Typically, when it's strictly IFR, there is less volume. So our point of view is that we're going to provide the service to the maximum extent possible. The only time we're going to say no is if we can't. Now, if it's VFR, we're going to really expect you guys to go ahead and cancel, but we can't ask you to. We're going to say you need to land at the airport you're cleared to, unless. Now, on those days where it's just IFR, no matter what you do, no matter where you go, East County, West County, over the shore, it's all IFR. We are definitely going to work with you because our goal is to get you what you need. That is our goal at the end of the day.
Okay.
Did that answer it?
Yeah, it looks like I'm just fielding some questions here.
I anticipate there'll be a lot of questions on this. It's new. It's not the way we've been doing business in our area for the last 20 years. But since a manager at one of the control towers elevated this issue, we can't do it like we were doing it before. And we're forced to do it like they're doing it in the Burbank area. If you guys remember the map of the areas, that's how they're doing it there. That's how they're doing it in Empire. That's how they're doing it in Coast. So literally our hands are tied. The way we had it before was the most flexible way, but we can still achieve that. I don't think it's going to really be a huge impact on your plans. It's just that every once in a while it will be.
Okay. So a couple of questions. One, so the question is, under VMC, do we need to request full stops? And then the
Negative.
A similar question is it just better to request VFR practice approaches when it's VFR and file tech IFR when it's IMC?
Yeah, it's always going to be more expeditious for you to just depart VFR. And I know you want to do IFR training, but you can simulate a lot of that in the cockpit. A lot of the routes that you're going to get are going to be the very much similar routes that you would get if you were IFR anyways. Our internal flows don't really change from one sector to another that much, whether you're IFR or VFR. And I would say that you can actually probably cut your fuel cost if that was your goal by doing the whole thing VFR anyways, because when we get back to the separation requirements, if I don't have to give you and the guy in front of you 3 miles of separation, which from my point of view, it's overkill. I know that a Cessna following a Cherokee, 1.5 miles on a VFR practice approach, they're not going to catch each other. They're going to be perfectly safe. But when you're IFR, now I've got to change my plan because there might be a jet behind both of you. So instead of getting you both in and out of the way and check the box, now I've got to delay maybe both of you to get the jet in, or maybe just the back guy to get the jet in. But at the end of the day, if you're VFR, my separation requirements goes down to, basically just make it work. And it's always going to save you time in that flight plan. Now, VMC versus IFR, I mean, that's a different thing. But I think what you're trying to ask is if we're on a VFR flight plan or a VFR, flight following or a VFR practice approach request, sort of a flight. But there you go.
Cool. Yeah, I get there's probably going to be tons more questions on this.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, try to file, if you're going to file IFR because the weather's high enough, then go to your first airport. If it looks like you might be able to stay VFR for a little while, try to cancel IFR and proceed VFR, and then go back to SoCal VFR and then see what they can do. Is that a workable plan?
Yeah, and it gets complicated too, because now you guys as pilots, you're looking at, there might be some clouds over here, there might be some clouds over there. What are they going to tell me when I go mist? Are they going to have me go south? They're going to have me go north? They're going to have me go west? So trying to dodge all of those factors, you're trying to miss Bravo airspace. It's going to add complexity. But the bottom line, I think, is here. Hypothetically, or let's just say a typical flight, you depart Montgomery, you want to ILS at Palomar. Following that, you want to go to an RNAV 9 at Ramona. Following that, you want to go do an ILS at Palomar or Montgomery. So Montgomery, Palomar, Ramona, back to Montgomery. If it looks sketchy, well, then you're not under any requirement to cancel. If it doesn't look like it's going to hold up, you're not under any requirement to cancel. If it looks clear in a million, then cancel, get your approach requests in there. If it looks like you can't maintain IFR throughout this whole thing, at some point in time, you just have to say, look, we really want another approach at Ramona, but we can't do it VFR. And we'll typically know when, the weather's rolling in. We get new ATISs from every airport, but there's a lot of gray area here, guys. And I get that, but there's really nothing we can do about it, because the volume of GA practice flights in our area is so high that if everyone is going to be IFR, it's just going to overwhelm everything. And as you all know, everything goes through Miramar. Miramar's final, which fortunately, they're not always busy. But if you're VFR, we have much less separation requirement, and we can still continue to run Miramar while allowing the GA population to sort of transit there without having to overburden that sector with IFR aircraft. Because when everyone's IFR, you run out of airspace really quick. I know it looks like it's a big airspace, but when everybody needs 3 miles and 1,000 feet and you get different speeds involved, well, you can only use 5,000 for the first guy. And if the second guy's doing 200 knots or 220 knots, now 5,000 is dead to you, because you got to be above them or below them. And you can't use 4 usually, because you run out of MVA. So now you start stacking planes on top of each other, but they all have to cross the Miramar final. And then now the fighters need to land too. So we're trying to juggle all of these options. So at the end of the day, VFR is always going to be more efficient for every single person involved. But on those days when it's marginal, I literally don't have a one-size-fits-all answer, because there isn't one. There just simply isn't one.
Let's see. There's another question. How do we get better handling, better vectors, and actual altitude assignments or suggested altitudes when VFR? I hate when they say VFR altitude at your discretion. My approaches always come out screwed up.
Okay. Well, I personally wasn't aware that that was a problem. From the controller perspective, if I say altitude your discretion, that means, if I know you're going to such airport and you need to descend, or you're departing our area and climbing out somewhere, that means from our point of view, we separate aircraft, 3-dimensionally. We're looking at airplanes that can cross your path and aircraft along your projected route of flight that may be above or below you. So when we say altitude your discretion, from our perspective, that means I have no traffic that will interfere with you vertically or descending. So altitude your discretion gives you the freedom to climb or descend as you want. So if someone says, altitude your discretion on a practice approach, well, you might be at 3,500. That means you can descend whenever you want, or you can stay at 3,500. So it gives the pilot more flexibility from my point of view. But if you guys are on VFR flight plans and you want more rigid structure, well, I really wasn't aware of that. From my point of view, that gives you more flexibility, because we're saying, look, fly heading 250, join the localizer, altitude your discretion. You know, I could easily say maintain 3,500 until established, but it's really splitting hairs. It's just descend when you want to descend. It gives you the complete flexibility to descend or not descend, or climb or not climb.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, there's nothing else that I saw on here, so there you go.
So this is just a general map of, kind of generically labeled as, the southeastern area of our airspace. There is an MVA map there, and there is a Bravo airspace map. So what we're looking at is that if you see a 3,800 block down in the lower corner, that is the Bravo airspace where the initial approach fix for San Diego Lindbergh is. That's Vida or O'Kane. And then you have Gillespie there. I guess we're kind of breaching into the class Bravo topic here, but maybe not too much. This is just sort of a general idea for those who aren't familiar. We're balancing a lot of things. Some of them are MVAs, and then we're balancing the class Bravo airspace, and we're also balancing the other aircraft that are in the sky. So I guess we could say here on this slide, there's not too much to learn other than there's usually a reason why we have you at the altitude that we do, because we're looking at a sort of a big worldwide view of everything that could be in your way. That's terrain, that's obstructions, that's Bravo airspace, that's the MVA. And we're trying to balance all that with your needs at one time. And I think the next slide is just the same thing, the next couple of slides. Again, if anyone has a question, about the Bravo airspace now, you can start typing them in now, because I know it's a complicated issue. Northeast area, that's kind of where, up by Palomar and all that. This is more like the coast. You guys were talking earlier about the noise abatement area there. That was interesting to me. So I don't know why the TCAS RA come up here, but and I guess it's important to note, what I would say about this is if you look chronologically, our number of TCAS events are going down. And what I would say to the GA community about that is, sometimes we do have to vector you away from TCAS. And even if it's outside or above the realm of normal separation requirements, sometimes they're 20 degrees right or 20 degrees left or 300 feet even will prevent a TCAS RA. And I know it stinks being the GA guy when there's no way you're gonna smash the airliner, you're gonna smash the military guy, you're not gonna smash the jet. But at the same time, we know that if we trigger that guy's TCAS alarm, what happens is they have to climb or descend, and then we kind of have to rejuggle everything. There's kind of a moment of I wouldn't say chaos, but there's a moment where you go, okay, you're climbing, okay, tell me when you can resume the altitude I gave you, because the other guy was never a factor anyways. Okay, now the TCAS says you can go back to the altitude. Now maybe that guy's too high, and maybe you got extended. So TCAS is beautiful. I mean, it saved lives, there's no doubt, but we've had to separate from TCAS because it causes more workload for everyone. So you can see as our numbers drop, I think here in 2020, I would attribute most of that to COVID though. So I don't think we improved 75% or whatever that is, 30% in a year. I think that's just COVID. Okay, best practices. Do not join a final approach unless you're in contact with ATC. Don't maneuver altitudes that are near glide path or intercept altitudes, or I would add maybe initial approach fixes. A lot of guys like to maneuver over SCON at 3,500. That's a beast. If you're maneuvering over a VOR, airway, final approach to an airport, please advise. We'll provide flight following, workload permitting. correct altitude for direction. Class Bravo clearances. We'll get into Class Bravo again. I think there's going to be some time to really focus on the Bravo here pretty soon. And, the readbacks. I know it's difficult being a backseat driver and trying to push your student to, taking the helm. But there's a lot of controllers that want to emphasize when it does start to pick up. And if you feel like your student's falling behind on the communication, to, not be afraid to step in and keep things moving, because it can get frustrating. And I understand these guys are trying to learn this new career in a second language, and God bless them. I couldn't do it. But does anyone want to ask any questions about any of these items right here? I think there should be, maybe we should go over Bravo separately, maybe, but personally, the thing about not joining a final approach unless you're in contact with ATC, it might be a best practice. But I feel that a nav aid is a nav aid. And if you're going to, personally, if you're going to fly, track the localizer, it really shouldn't matter to a controller that you're flying the localizer in. But it can have an impact on if there's someone really faster behind you and you're on the localizer and then we have to break them out, that becomes a workload issue. So if it's dead, if nothing's happening, the frequency is just quiet, it's not going to matter. But if it starts to get busy, that's when that one really becomes more important.
Conway might be online with us too now, Zach. There's one question that you may not be able to answer, but I'll ask anyway. If we request VFR practice approaches, why does Gillespie Tower give us basically a full IFR departure clearance with headings and altitudes, and Montgomery Tower just gives us a transponder code and a frequency?
Okay, so when you're departing Montgomery, there is a kind of a really nice juicy corridor just west of the field where you don't have to in any way enter the Bravo airspace as long as you're above 3,200 feet. The Bravo shelf there, the first one that you hit is from 1,800 to 3,200, and that's the one that starts just north of La Jolla Cove. And then it opens again from 3,300 all the way up to 6,700. There's another corridor in there. So with Montgomery Tower, if they release you, cleared for takeoff, frequency change approved, or right turn out of traffic approved, frequency change approved. Well, you have so much time to establish contact with ATC. What we've done at Gillespie, when you depart, you're right in the Bravo. So our idea is that we can't set you up to automatically have a Bravo airspace violation. So if you're going to depart Gillespie VFR and go, say, to Palomar or even Oceanside, they're going to give you a procedure that looks a lot like a IFR departure procedure because you're on a Bravo airspace clearance at that point.
Okay, moving right along. Yeah, Conway, I can hear you. There's a couple questions for either of you. Let's see. First one, our Tracon tour is still on hold because of COVID.
I'm sorry, Conway, I can't hear you at all. So I don't know if I've been stepping over you this whole time.
No, you're good. You're good.
But
Zach.
okay, yeah, no, the Tracon tours they are on hold. Yeah, and that's a bummer, but we can't do it.
Okay, let's see. The other question was, does cleared into class Bravo own nav imply altitude your discretion?
No. When you cleared into the Bravo, unless we say, well, let me back up first. When you get cleared into the Bravo, we do typically will give you an altitude to maintain or something to that nature. But if we don't give you an altitude, you can assume you can start down or whatever you need to do, or ask, is there an altitude you want me to maintain? It never hurts to ask. Sometimes we do get busy, and just saying cleared into the Bravo so we can talk to the next guy is what we do. But if you are questioning it, I would suggest just asking, hey, is there altitude you want us to maintain? But no, it doesn't. Just being cleared into the Bravo, you can fly through it without any other restrictions. That's what it is. We just cleared you into the Bravo. You can do whatever you need to do until we tell you otherwise.
Something else that came up.
I think on initial check-in, personally, I will give an at or above altitude 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
Just in case faster moving traffic or crossing traffic, I anticipate being in a known area where there is traffic. And what I personally do is I gradually will remove altitude restrictions as you clear those certain zones where there's typically a lot of traffic. But if I have no traffic, sometimes I will say cleared into Bravo airspace, own navigation, altitude discretion. But I feel like the controller should be saying something about the altitude, whether it be altitude or discretion or an at or above.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Another comment, I guess, comment question. When training east of Gillespie, I've heard some controllers like for us to be on flight following to allow for separation of airline traffic.
I think that one's a little bogus. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things, I guess. Maybe 1 or 2 guys will get into higher altitudes, like 7,000-8,000, but that's so few and far between that's not. No, in that area, most of the practice areas, I think on one of the slides, it's like we would prefer to be talking to you if you're going to be holding over VORs, airways, stuff like that, workload permitting. But if you're just in a general area, that's not something that we can't control. A lot of times it'll be so many planes over there, we would do you a disservice trying to call all of the traffic and have you looking a million ways for potential traffic, because that's what we do. We call the traffic that we see that could potentially be in your way. And if you're over there practicing in an area where other planes are practicing, we really don't want to have to control in that area. We try to separate from known traffic. If we're not talking to you, we have no idea what you're doing. So no, I wouldn't personally want to talk to you if you're in some of those east of Gillespie areas.
I think that's it, guys. I don't see any other questions coming through. Anyone else have any questions for the SoCal guys? Doesn't look like it.
All right.
Okay. I really appreciate you guys joining in. If you want to hang for a few minutes, we're probably maybe 5 minutes left of the meeting. See if there's any questions. But aside from that, really appreciate you coming out. You're free to drop off too, and I can always email you.
Okay. Yeah, appreciate you all having us. Sorry I couldn't get on until the very last minute, but the part I heard, Zach was doing a great job of explaining everything. So again, right now you got any questions, my email is down there. Nathan Fisher is the other safety council person. Zach, you can get in touch with him through, I think Rob has his information if you want to get in touch with him as well. So yeah, I'll stick around for a minute. Just let me know any other questions you guys have.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Let's see here. I'm just going to mute you guys for now. All right, Denny, you're up. So as I bring Denny online here, for those that have not gotten checked out or don't know about the G1000 Redbird simulator at Gillespie, Denny's got some information here. So with that, Denny, take it away.
Okay, for those who don't know me, I have a 172 91 Echo. It's got a new engine coming on, being back to Gillespie next week. And the Redbird simulator, bought both of those for the college aviation program a number of years ago. And they've been doing great at +1. I probably have a little over 100 folks checked out on it, maybe 110. But there's a new feature I want to introduce. First of all, I just want to let everybody know you need to check out. I do them all personally for standardization. It's always available. You schedule on Schedule Master. It's great for all kinds of training, including VFR and IFR, and for emergency procedures. But and just today I had Sarah updated the website where you get information about the checkout online. And what is it good for? Lots of things: procedures, maneuvers, checklists, FAM, avionics, situational awareness, and all those kinds of things. But it's also not particularly good for a couple of things, which includes landings and taxi. So the advantage of a simulator, it's a fuel injected, so it doesn't have a carburetor heat. Full IFR approaches, multiple approaches without SoCal TRACON conflicts. They just put that in just for fun. But also you can do published missed approaches anytime without any conflicts at Miramar or Montgomery or anyplace else. Take your weather down to Category 1 minimum. That's very realistic. And systems failures are better when you don't have somebody covering up an instrument. You can just simply make it realistic and have a student or a regular pilot try to understand that the failure happens in real time the way it does in an airplane. And it does have a 6-pack standard panel and a G1000 instrument panel. They're switchable. It takes 5 minutes and it's USB. You can change them hot. It just says that it's not really good for landing, and don't try to taxi with it. New rules last year came out. You don't need a CFI or double I for IFR recency. You can do it yourself as long as you log it correctly. And you only need to do it every 6 months instead of 2, which was the previous rule under AATDs. And if you need an IPC, you can do about 95% of them in the AATD, the Redbird full motion simulator, except for the circling approach and the landing task. And the BATDs can't be used for any part of that. What I want to introduce you today is the GIFT. It's Guided Independent Flight Instruction. I've had open houses and invited CFIs down there to watch this program in action. It's kind of a cutting edge technology by Redbird. They come up with this stuff every year, and this is a fabulous improvement. Basically, it's a simulator with a coach using artificial intelligence. So you can fly these things with a virtual CFI in there. And for those of you who have used this simulator before, you know you can order up any scenario or create one of your own. And down at the bottom there, you see a bunch of red locks on the instrument. These are gift scenarios that are locked until you buy a subscription. They're all locked. When you have a subscription, you create a key and put in your PIN, and those will all unlock. So how do you get started with the gift? First of all, you get it from me because on the website, Redbird gift both the PPL for private pilots and the IR, so $224. So I'm able to get those to you for $50 for PPL and $100 for the IFR one. You then get a free cloud account, create a USB key, access your modules with a PIN number, and then you can unlock all your gift scenarios. And then you start the flight, and there's verbal instructions telling you how to fly each one of these maneuvers. And you can debrief it when you're done, either using the Redbird or Cloud Ahoy products. So how does gift work? Well, first of all, you can start this at home on an iPad or a computer. You read the pre-flight brief, actually the ACS standards, and you're going to watch a video. Then you're going to fly it in the sim. Then you have a chance to debrief it. So that's what the read page looks like. The overview is the ACS standards, kind of telling you what to expect. And then you're going to watch this video, and then you're going to fly it yourself. And then it's going to present a score sheet, basically using ACS standards, and they're very, very picky. It gives you the individual score, and then it gives you an overall score if you'd pass that maneuver. It's kind of a highway in the sky. You can see the students can get used to doing this and to learn a maneuver the first time, and then later when they practice it, the scoring should get better and better and better. That's what I said earlier. I was able to do I actually did a survey with all my checked out people for the Redbird. And I said, what price point? $249. Nobody's buying them at that. Well, I've been a long time customer of Redbird. So I says, okay, my survey says PPLs would $50. And for IR, it's $100. And so I'm the only one in the country that I know of that's getting this price. So don't do it online. It has all 33 private pilot maneuvers. And if you're an IR gift guy, all the different kinds of approaches. These are all the 33 maneuvers required by ACS. For the instrument, all the different kinds of approaches, all 10 different kinds of approaches. The debrief looks kind of like that. And all this stuff at the bottom right is your Redbird cloud screen, which it shows all your flights. And you can debrief it with Redbird or Cloud Ahoy, and it also ports all this information to ForeFlight. And the neat thing about that is that you'll never get a better debrief than Cloud Ahoy. But if you don't want to pay for that, CFI is just a very good tool. Should take a look at the free opportunity they give you to check it out. That's just another example of a score sheet. So now how do instructors use that? They can see what weaknesses their students have. Students can see what weaknesses they have and work on those. And that's kind of another picture of a debrief. Shows you where you're flying and what your glide slope and localizer would look like, for example, on an IFR flight. That's a picture of a Cloud Ahoy debrief, very detailed, 3D or 2D. Airspeed, altitudes, headings, everything there tells you exactly how you did it, and you can watch a video of yourself if you want to do that. And that's the gist of the program. And I think from what I've been able to tell from the people who have used it, it's very effective. They really like it. And I really want to kind of introduce that to CFIs at +1 because it's a great tool, and I'd be happy to show it to you. Just reach out to me. All my information's on the +1 Flyers website. That's it, Shane. Thanks so much for the opportunity. Unless there's any questions.
All right. Any questions for Denny? Anyone? Bueller? I don't see any questions coming through. Thanks, Denny.
You're welcome. Thanks for the opportunity, guys.
All right. Any last minute before we wrap this up? Any last minute questions for the SoCal guys? I didn't see any come through, but if you have any, let me know. Okay. So while everybody scrambles to log their code, the next meeting I'm going to publish by the next CFI the next instructor newsletter in January. I'll have all the 2021 meeting dates on there. Who knows what is going to happen and when we're going to get back into the hotel. The safety panel meeting, we're going to try to do that sometime in January, the way we always, we'll try to have it like we always do, but how we have it might be online like this. So if you're familiar with that, it's usually one of the best turned out meetings in the club. Usually we have every controlling agency, every tower, SoCal, etc. So more information will come through on that early January. Hopefully we can figure something out. If there's any questions, you can throw them in the chat. Otherwise, have a good night, everybody. We'll stay online for just about 2 or 3 minutes here, and then everybody will get kicked off.